Well, hi, food friends. It's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Ralph behind the camera.
And here we are, and a beautiful summer morning, and we are making homemade tomato soup a la Dinah Shore. Dinah Shore was a lover of food and of cooking and of cuisine, and she published a number of cookbooks in her life, and we have one that has a great tomato soup recipe in it, and that's what we're going to make today.
Homemade tomato soup?
Yeah, because we got a lot of homegrown tomatoes.
This is that time of the year, right?
It is. And these are some of the tomatoes that they're delicious, but they have a few blemishes here and there. So what to do? You might not want to put these in a salad because, you know, they've got some markings on the skin, but they're every bit as good. So we're making tomato soup out of them.
From scratch?
From scratch. Now, the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to have to move Miss Shore out of the way, but I want to get at this. We're going to first get the skin off of a tomato. Well, how do you do that? Well, there's a couple of different methods. The best and easiest is to put the tomatoes in a pot of simmering water for, a minute or so, and it will loosen those skins up. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get our tomatoes de-skinned, and then we'll come back and we're going to start by adding our tomatoes and a few potatoes.
Really?
Actually.
Potatoes?
Yeah, I've got 3 small potatoes here, sliced very thinly. We're going to cook the tomatoes and the potatoes. The potatoes are going to give the soup a little body, and then we're going to add our seasonings. Got a couple of bay leaves here. I've got a teaspoon of dried basil. You could use fresh. I've got some salt and pepper.
I noticed you had some cream in the refrigerator. Is that going to come into play?
It is. We're actually going to use half and half. You could use milk as well, but we're going to want a nice rich soup. We've got friends coming for lunch, and we want to give them a real summer treat. So we're working on our soup tomato a la Dinah Shore. We'll be right back. So I'm taking the last tomato out of the hot water here, and I'm putting it in cold water. Okay?
Isn't that called shocking them or
Yeah,
something?
kind of shocking. But you can see, come on over here, see what's happening to the skin? Look at this one. The skin just breaks, and look, it literally peels right off.
Oh,
see?
No fuss, no muss.
No fuss, no muss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to peeling these tomatoes, and then we'll get them in the pot. We'll come back and put them in the pot with everything else.
Okay, you just wanted people to see how easy it is to get them peeled. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And the key is, you know what, hot water for a minute or so, and then put it in cold water. And you can see, I can take it off actually with my finger if I wanted to. Okay. That skin comes right. See how beautiful?
And the
Look
meat
at
of the
that.
tomato isn't too pulpy or mushy yet?
It's going to cook anyways.
Right, but I mean it hasn't
But it's
made
still
it
firm, right?
easy enough to peel off. Okay,
So
great.
it's, boiling water, then cold water, and then it'll really loosen that skin up. So we'll be right back. All right, here we go. We've got our tomatoes here. Ralph, I don't know if you can get a shot. They're all peeled. Okay. So we got just our kind of tomato meat. I'm going to just mash these up
with
a little bit.
Old-fashioned potato masher. Wow.
Just
to soften them a bit.
Yeah, and I want to get, tomatoes have a lot of liquid in them, as we know. Okay, so there's our tomatoes. I've got the heat on medium. We're going to cook these on medium heat just until the potatoes that we're putting in get softened up. Okay, we want those potatoes nice and soft. So we're going to
mix it up.
I'm using the masher to mix now.
But this is, these potatoes aren't going to stay solid. They're going to get creamed or mashed down.
Right.
So, will you taste them in the soup, do you think?
And then we're going to put our, while we taste them, no. I mean, potatoes are kind of
neutral in some ways.
But they are going to give, the soup some body.
Right.
So we're going to have, we got our basil in there, salt and pepper, and a couple of bay leaves. So I'm going to cover this pot, and then we'll let, again, once the potatoes are softened, we'll put the whole mixture through a sieve or a food mill, and then come back and then add the rest of our ingredients.
So you don't need to add any liquid to it right now?
No,
There's enough
just
going
enough
on?
with the juice from the tomatoes.
Great.
To cook those potatoes and get them nice and soft.
Homemade tomato soup from scratch a la Dinah Shore.
Yeah. Okay, so here's our cooked potatoes, tomatoes, basil. We had a couple bay leaves, which I just fished out,
And then your seasonings.
and salt and pepper.
Cooked for how long?
A half an hour. And by the way, I forgot, I added a medium diced onion after we were done.
The last segment.
Yeah, I totally forgot to put that in. The recipe is always on Cavalcade Food, so you can go there and get the recipe. Or it's in Dinah Shore's cookbook, of course. But anyway, so what I'm doing now is we are kind of pureeing the contents of the pot.
Isn't that real hot?
What?
Isn't that stuff really hot?
Yes, it is.
So it won't explode or anything, will it?
No, you have to be careful though when you're using hot stuff in a blender. Don't fill it to the top because you've got all this steam. That's why I'm doing this in batches. So, yeah, always safety. Okay. So we'll add it to that. You see how it's kind of it has a certain thickness? That's from the potatoes.
Oh. How come it's two different colors?
Well, the first batch was mostly tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
So we have got our tomato potato puree all done. See that? And that looked beautiful. Now what I've got in the pot is I've got 2 tablespoons of butter just melted, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. So you know what that is, right?
Yeah, a roux.
Roux.
You're going to raise a ruckus in a roux.
So we're going to get this flour cooked here. And this is, of course, just the classic recipe for a thickener. Let me turn the heat down a little bit. So we've got our roux. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make kind of a thick base for our soup.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So we've got our flour, and roux is a whole complicated thing in and of itself, but we're not cooking this roux too long. It's just sort of a light golden color. Now we're going to take our milk,
Half
or in
and
this
half.
case half and half. The recipe calls for about a cup, so we're going to slowly put this in. And I'm going to I'm going to put in about a pint of half and half. Now you could use whole milk here if you didn't want to use half and half. But what I want to do is I want to bring this up, and I'm going to switch actually tools and get a whisk, because you see the pieces of flour in here?
Yes.
You want to
Make sure it's not lumpy.
no lumps. So we're going to give this a good whisking and get all that nice and dissolved. And of course, as it comes up to a heat, it will start to thicken.
Now this soup that you have already made here is not ready to eat because it's not hasn't been combined with that base. But
Exactly. So that is really concentrated super tomato, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
flavor. Now, and what we're actually doing is we're thinning it with the half and half from milk.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
but we don't want to thin it too much because we wanted a soup consistency. Because again, this is a cream soup, cream of tomato.
And I have to tell you though, just this tomato soup, super concentrate that we're looking at right here, is going to fill your kitchen with such wonderful smells that'll really bring back memories. And also, if you've never made homemade soup, I never have, and I know Kevin's making it look really easy, so give it a try because it's got those canned things beat, even though we don't discriminate against cans.
No.
We use them in lots of cooking, but making a homemade tomato soup sure is fun.
It is fun, and it's a
smells
great way
yummy.
to use, especially if you have tomatoes or you have people who are bringing tomatoes over to you all the time, or you get a good deal on a whole bushel or pack of tomatoes, you know, and you're thinking, what can I do? Well, here's one thing you can do.
Yeah, people don't often think about it because it's so convenient to use the can. People don't often think about when it's tomato season. You could just make a nice homemade from scratch tomato soup.
Absolutely. So we're going to this is just coming up here, Ralph. Can you bring the camera in and see what's going on in the pot? So you can see we've whisked it nice and smooth. We've got the lumps out, and it's just starting to come up to a bubble into a thick. So kind of a, just a white sauce. So then what we're going to do is we're going to add our tomato. As soon as this thickens, we're going to add our tomato mixture to it, okay?
Okay.
And then get that combined, and then we're going to add a little bit more milk, or half and half in our case. Then we'll test for seasonings. I will put a pinch of sugar in here too, but not until the end. You know, with tomatoes, sometimes because you have that sharp, acidy flavor, a little pinch of sugar goes a long way. So we'll be right back. Or absolutely, you know what? Stay with us. We're ready. Okay. See, this has come up now, Ralph? See how thick that is?
Yeah.
See how nice and thick that is?
So that's ready?
So that's ready. So what we're going to do is let's take our tomato mixture. We're going to add that in.
Add that to the creamy roux with the half and half in the flour and the butter.
Yeah. You know, I was reading in Dinah Shore's cookbook about how she came to make this soup, and she was in Florida. She said with Burt Sr. and what's his name, and I think what she was referring to was Burt Reynolds Jr., who, you know, they were a hot couple for a long time. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
Yeah, she had her own show, and people probably remember Dinah Shore for different periods, but people from our generation probably remember her more from her TV show.
And she did a lot of cooking on her TV show, where she would have
did she?
A lot of her celebrity, guests cook with her. She loved food. I mean, she did a lot of cooking. It was a big part of her life.
I don't remember that. I remember she had really fun guests like David Bowie and Iggy Pop and people of the time that were kind of unusual. So,
okay.
So she was one of the first to have cooking segments, I bet.
She might have been, because I remember seeing, a lot of her guests who were cooks. They would come and cook with her. All right.
Oh, fun.
So I'm going to put another, almost a cup of
your liquid,
just to thin it out. Isn't that pretty? So here we go. We have our soup blended. I put a little pinch of salt, a couple turns of the pepper mill, and a pinch of sugar in it, just to sort of soften a little bit of the acidic.
It sure looks good.
There it is. I don't know if you can get a good light on it, but it's really
very creamy.
Beautiful color. And
give it the taste test.
Yep. It has the body of a potato soup, but it also has a wonderful, real soft tomato flavor. Very good.
Can
Delicious.
I try it?
Of course, because I know you want some. And I put the spoon back in, but we're all friends here.
Whoa. Wow. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize potatoes went into tomato soup like this, and it really gives it a nice thickening, but you don't taste it as a potato. You taste a lot of strong tomato flavor, and the seasonings are just right. It's real simple, but very delicious and flavorful.
Tomato soup for lunch. Anyways, thank you, Dinah Shore, for your music, your recipes, all the great golf and tennis matches that you sponsored, and we're honoring you today with your tomato soup wherever you are.
Make some for yourself, folks. Cavalcade of Food.
That's right. Recipes at cavalcadeoffood.blogspot.com. Enjoy the summer, what's left of it, and enjoy the tomatoes. And thanks for being a part of this one. We'll see you next time.
Catch you next time. Bye now.
Bye.